we're going to be taking a deep dive with my colleague, John Davis, into the Future Family Enterprise and related courses and programs that we're offering here at the MIT Sloan School. We are quite a small group today, I think, because this is people who are particularly interested in these courses. So I know we're going to have a great conversation, not only with John, but with each other as well as we explore this topic and take some time to learn about what John teaches here at the Sloan School and the particular courses that I know that you are all interested in. So as Eric said, please do feel free throughout the session to put any questions in the Q&A tab or any other comments that you would just like to share with everyone. As you are doing with your greetings from all around the world, please feel free to keep doing that in the chat as well. We hope this will be very interactive. So just to introduce John a little bit more, I think you all know who he is, of course. John is a senior lecturer at the MIT Sloan School, and he came to the Sloan School after really a very significant career, essentially creating the field of the clinical study of family enterprises in the business school context. And John has worked with, I want to say dozens, but I suspect it is hundreds of family enterprises during that time, and helped many of them to really understand and address the challenges that they face as businesses, but also as families. And indeed, as people. He's created models that help us to understand this sector. He's very sought after as an expert and a speaker. And so we're delighted not only that he is with us in the Sloan School, but also that he's with us today to tell us a little bit more about his work and in particular about the programs that he teaches in here with us in MIT Sloan Executive Education. So today, what we'll cover on the next slide is John will give us a good, I think, overview of the topic and his experience and the ideas that are important in this field. And as I mentioned earlier, we will make sure there's plenty of time to also talk about the specific courses that we're offering here in this space and to answer any questions that you might have. As John will tell you, we're very excited to be returning to campus with executive education this spring, and the Future Family Enterprise course is leading the way for us. And so all of you are really most welcome to this webinar, and we hope we'll be seeing many of you and your families at MIT in the near future as well. So with that, John, if perhaps I could hand over to you, and I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to say about what we're going to cover, or really just get into talking about your work with us.
Thank you, Peter. And thank you all for joining us today. This is it's fun for me to describe what I'm doing at Sloan, and especially in executive ed. As Peter said, you know, I've been in this field. I helped to create the field back in the early 1980s. I started in this field before that and was one of the first, not the only, but one of the first academics to take the study of family companies, and then more recently, it's been broadened to include family enterprise, and I'll describe the difference. And to, in addition to my academic work, start working with families that own companies or own philanthropic foundations or later owned family offices, to really understand how these various kinds of organizations maintain their success over time, and how the families do as well. And the Future Family Enterprise program, which I'm going to be spending most of the next half hour describing to you, and the thinking that underlies these programs, is my effort to encapsulate what I've learned over these 40 years, to team up with really interesting MIT faculty in our program, and to deliver to you what we think is the most advanced, cutting edge, state of the art kind of thinking and pragmatic advice about how you develop and maintain the success of a generation 2 or later family business, family office, family enterprise. So now you'll see at the bottom of this page that there are 2 programs that I've designed and lead. The first is the Future Family Enterprise Program. This is for second generation and beyond, more complex systems typically. And then in October, we'll be having a program very similar in content, but customized for founder organizations, and typically founder organizations that are planning their transition to the next stage. So we divide the universe of family companies in this way to give plenty of attention to both types, and there are enough distinct issues between founder family companies and family enterprises and later stage family companies, family enterprises to make that separation valuable. So with that broad introduction and welcome, let me say that we're going to talk about the concepts and the important lessons that we approach and dig into in this program, and then give you a bird's eye view of how the program is laid out over its 6 days so that you can understand the learning journey that you and your family will take. And then obviously talk about anything. If you have questions at any point, please pass them in the chat to Peter, and we will address them then, or I've reserved time at the end of this hour so that we can dig into your questions and hopefully encourage a number of families to be with us in April. But first, I'd like to know who's with us today. So we will now give you a poll to answer, and please choose one of these 5 options so we can see who's with us. And just take a few seconds on this. This is an easy one. We'll get to the tougher questions later in the hour. But are you a member of a business family not working in your family company or family office, or a member of a business family who is, or a non-family manager or advisor, or independent board member or advisor or academic? And I would have difficulty choosing between the last 2 categories because I straddle both of these categories, but choose the one that you want to be known as. Okay? So can we close that and see where we are? Okay. Okay, so almost half, 42%, are in business families. A few non-family executives or non-family members of boards, a number of advisors and academics who are with us, and we welcome you. Advisors and academics, if you know families that would benefit from this program, please send them our way. And advisors do the same. And advisors alone don't come to Future Family Enterprise or our family enterprise programs. But if they come with a family, they're warmly invited. And it's actually, we've had some advisors attend with families that they advise and serve. And it tends to be a very productive session for the advisor and for the family. So let's close that one and ask the next one. So where is your, for those families, for those participants in this webinar who we're part of a business family, where is your family business or family enterprise headquartered? If not, or the one that you serve on, non-family executive, independent board member, where is it located? But not for the half of us who are advisors and academics, where are you located? So, and you've got several choices here, 9, I believe. So another easy question. Choose one. Okay, and let's see. Our webinars and our programs attract people from all over the world. And we find, by the way, and we can close this now and we can start looking at where you're from. US, Canada, Latam, Caribbean. That's interesting. Biggest, some from Europe, some from Middle East, and one from East Asia. So welcome everybody. One of the things that we'll say is, I've had individually and through my advisory company, had experience advising up close and personal families from all over the world. I've personally advised families from more than 70 countries. And that means I've been on airplanes a lot in my life and visiting people all over the globe. And one of the interesting findings is that I take away from my experience and that we have learned in our company is that there are some national and cultural differences, obviously, in families and in family enterprise, not the least of which can be local tax laws, for example, but other cultural differences, but they tend not to influence very much the important topics or issues that families and family enterprises wrestle with. Now, when it comes to implementing actions to address these issues or prepare for the future, you take culture and national laws into account, obviously. But families are families and businesses are businesses. And they tend to, across the globe, have a lot of similar, mostly similar interests, concerns, and issues. So let's close out here and say that in general, this is what we're trying to accomplish. And our track record is really quite good on this because we've been at it for a long time, of defining the mindsets, the ways of thinking, the specific principles, but also pragmatic actions that lead to success of a family enterprise over generations. To come away from these programs really understanding how family enterprises, family companies, family offices, family foundations, the broader family enterprise, how they adapt and succeed, especially in this turbulent era that we've been in now since about the turn of the century, but seems to be getting more and more volatile and unpredictable. This, by the way, I call this the MIT difference or advantage. For 20 years, I taught very happily at Harvard Business School down the river and came to MIT for going on 5 years ago because I wanted to be part of the conversation at MIT about how the world is changing, how to get ready, adapt to the numerous changes that are going on in our world, and how the role of family companies and the strategies of family companies need to adapt. so that they can be successful in this environment. And it's been an eye-opening and deeply absorbing experience with my colleagues at MIT, learning from them and learning with them in ways that can help you. We're interested in these programs to help each family figure out how to keep their enterprise and their family going and, importantly, healthy over time. And every day, as I'll explain a little later, you're going to have a chance to work with your family team to come up, address the issues that are top of mind for you, but also broadly think about and plan for where you're going. So it's a jam-packed week. The days are long, but they are, as some families say, somewhere between deeply enlightening and transformative to their families, because not only do you get insights and deeply understand what you need to pay attention to and change, you're also doing this with your family. We invite teams of 4 or more family members, and we've had teams up to 10 of family members, and occasionally there'll be a non-family executive or non-family advisor in that group, but teams that can think together, learn together, talk together, try to reach some consensus during the course of the week about what is important to do going forward. Now, you hear me talking about family enterprise, and we've defined it in this way that most enterprising families, we say, have a family business, but not all. Some might have a family office, no operating companies that they own or control, but financial assets. Other families that we've known have philanthropic foundations that they run together, but most of the enterprising families we meet in our program and that I've advised over time have an assortment of assets and activities that are meaningful to them and that help them grow value in various ways and keep their family together. The family company normally gets the most attention. It's the biggest asset. It involves typically more of the family, but there can be non-core businesses, family financial assets, personal assets like homes, philanthropic and social impact activities, community activities, family life, and the emphasis within families to grow talent in various ways through formal education and in other ways. And it's useful for families, and we get them thinking about this right at the start, about what is your family enterprise? What should it be to meet your goals and to express your values? And how do you need to adjust it in this new world that we're in and going forward? And we'll spend time in the program focused not just on family companies, not just on family offices, on the typical wealth building activities of a family, but the whole family enterprise. We will talk about how family enterprises develop, evolve, morph over time, and especially according to the stage that you're in. The most important dimension that defines different kinds of family business issues and different needs that have to be addressed are the family and ownership stages that family enterprises naturally go through. They start out, not all, but most, I would say certainly more than 80% of the ones that I've studied and am aware of. They start at the controlling owner stage where one person typically, or a married couple, have control of the business and then broader resources of the family. After a generation or two, they move to the next stage, if the enterprise survives, to a group of brothers and sisters who together own the business and other assets. And then after another generation, they pass to the cousin stage. Each of these stages has its own particular challenges to address and opportunities to take advantage of. And then you're always trying to get ready for the next stage. And it's important to not put off getting ready for the next stage until you're very close to it. It's better when the family's younger, family members of the next generation are younger, and your organization has time to adapt, to start early thinking about the next stage, putting things in place for the next stage. I'll give you an example of that. Many families don't encourage the teamwork among their children. And what we know from family companies is that especially when they get into the sibling stage and then in the cousin stage, having good teamwork among the brothers and sisters and then later the cousins is an important building block for future success. But it's hard to get a group of brothers and sisters or cousins that have never learned to be a team, to come together when they get ownership and start acting like a team. Much better to try to develop those dynamics along the way so that when you get to the need for it, the family's ready. And that's just one example of getting ready for the future. And we'll talk about these. And one of the promises of this program is that whether you're at the late controlling, going into sibling, at the cousin stage, you will come out of this program really understanding your stage, its requirements for success, and what you need to do to build consensus around a plan for the future. We also pay attention to this dynamic, that family wealth is typically built significantly in the first two generations, and then either goes down in a more or less gradual way, that's called the 3-generation rule path, or falls precipitously. You want to avoid both of these, but it turns out that probably 85% of all families take one of these two paths. And only the remainder, 1 out of 6, 1 out of 7, as close as I've been able to determine in my research, make it to the regeneration path. And if you're on the regeneration path, there's no guarantee you'll stay on it automatically. You have to do some things to warrant being on that path. And if you don't do these things that we'll explain in very concrete terms, you will likely end up on the other two paths. And what are the 3 things you have to do? You have to keep growing your assets and value in financial ways for sure, but other ways as well. You have to keep developing important family and non-family talent, and we'll talk about that in some detail. And you have to stay united, both as a family ownership group, and as a larger organization or enterprise. These need to be driven by a mission or a purpose and guided by the key values that you believe are meaningful to your success and that you think express your way of doing things. When you pay attention to families, as I have over these 40 years, who do remain successful, what you understand is that they're in the process, generation over generation over generation, of building value according to their meaningful values. And the value that they try to create is comes out in different ways. There's financial value that is essential, and we're going to be talking about how you calculate the kind of value that you need to build financially. But that's not the only kind of value that you have to build. You have to build reputational value, relational being relationship among the family, with non-family executives and employees, with outside members that are important to us. There are certain alliances that we've established over time that are key. Relational value. Social impact value is now, and we will delve into that in an important way. So there are various kinds of value that you can build and need to build. What's your plan for building value is one of the questions we ask. And how are you going to do it in your family enterprise? We talk about family enterprise success, creating an enterprise that not only performs well, but can endure. And we all know that it takes capable management and a good organization, but it also takes good owners. And finally, the final and ultimate foundation for any family enterprise that's successful or not is a family. And if the family is industrious, loyal to what they're building, and can be united, aligned in purpose, and aligned in values, this is such a fundamental foundation. But so are the owners. And of course, so is the organization and the management team that you've got, family and non-family. So we know that management is always fundamental to success, but so are good owners. And finally, good owners are important in not only having the right skills, but as we will explain to you, having the right mindset, an owner mindset. Now, two mindsets are typically needed for long-term success. One of them is an operator mindset, really believing in operational excellence. But if you're only devoted to that and you forget about what owners typically pay attention to and need to, you can miss some important changes in your environment. You can miss opportunities that you should be investing in. You can wait too long to divest from things you've been invested in, from practices that are not working anymore, even people that are not contributing, but are still part of the system. So developing an owner mindset is vital, and we're going to be explaining how this happens. So finally, the final foundation, the family foundation, and you're going to be with us in a family team. We all recognize that families are complicated organizations. There are within a family, and of course this dilutes a bit as you get into the cousin stage. It's more sensitive, more emotional, and a little bit more complex in some ways at the sibling and nuclear family stage. But we recognize the dynamics of families at the nuclear, sibling, and cousin stages. And we talk about these relationships and how you manage the group and particular relationships that are important to you. And we discuss how families can be successfully blended in enterprises. What you want from an enterprise is not exactly the same thing as you want from the purpose of a family, but the two can go together. And what we understand from abundant research at this point is that on average, family companies perform better than non-family companies. And if you take a look at the most innovative, the most successful companies out there, the majority of them are family enterprises. So it's possible to do something right. And on average, family enterprise is a successful, even laudatory form of enterprise, but we know that there are issues. So how do you develop this to be not only high performing and expressing your values, but able to endure into another generation? And this is what we're going to talk about, including the variety of talent that you need to really drive the success of these enterprises. And very often families make the mistake of saying, look, we just need one. We need one really good business leader. The rest of it will take care of itself. Bad strategy. It's important to develop wealth creators, good executive leaders, good board members, family council members, great owners. We'll talk about that. But also people that can network, people that can help you in social impact, family members that are really good at unifying us and making us feel good about being a family. So we will talk about your overall talent strategy, how you stay well governed through various means, and especially in complex systems that need a bit more complex governance that is integrated, and how you maintain your family enterprise and your family, keep it adaptive, build resilience, create good consensus, strong consensus around workable strategies for success. In this age that, as MIT has taught me, is moving and will move even faster with more frequent and more volatile change, with an accelerating pace in our work lives, our personal lives, and also in our decisions, where windows of opportunity to take advantage of opportunities, but also to solve problems, are closing faster, where the world is less predictable, and where the landscape that we navigate in, what our world looks like, is changing on a pretty regular basis. So the program is over 6 days, Sunday until Friday at about noon. And in this program, we will talk about all of these topics, and you'll get an abbreviated version of this when we stop. But it's a process that will, with you and your family team, cover really important topics every day, where the next day builds on today's topic. So there's a build throughout this program where we move from broad to much more specific and sensitive topics, and where you have an opportunity at the end of every day for at least an hour in a facilitated conversation with your family in a private room, talking about your topics, about your goals, about your issues, and with somebody that's experienced that can help guide and facilitate the conversation, and also offer ideas to move to a better place, whatever that is for you. And during the day, you're going to learn a lot from other families. That's part of the overall classroom work, but part of what we've structured in. We will have some lectures and discussions, but they are all highly interactive. We'll do some case discussions, including a very interesting live case that we'll present to you. Have different kinds of breakouts for you to talk with others and gain some insights from them. and share your insights. And then these facilitated family meetings that are highly practical. One of the things that this institution, MIT, stands for, in fact, its motto is hand in mind, mind in hand. Don't just think clearly, but be practical. Develop ideas that you can implement. So being strong in both ways is part of the general nature of my academic home, which I'm very proud of. And it's also part of my focus and has been for these 40 years. So I'll remind you that we have another program for founder stage organizations in October. If you have friends at this stage, please let them know about it. And now, Peter, I think we've got time for a few questions.
Great, thank you so much, John, and thank you for those who've been already asking some questions. I will get to those right now. First off, one quick comment I saw in the chat from Sophie, who, when we did the survey on where folk were from or where their businesses were based, didn't get to the survey in time, but we do have someone from representing Sub-Saharan Africa as well. So we've got good global coverage there indeed, John. So thank you for letting us know that, Sophie. One high-level question that Kathy asks in the Q&A, you mentioned on one of your slides the idea of shared vision, and she's curious, what is a family business's shared vision? You know, how do you define its importance, and how do you cover that topic or the process for doing that in your teaching?
Yeah, thank you. The mission or purpose, the vision, and the values for a family are not exactly what they are for the family business. They will be different. What you want to accomplish, what you stand for, even some of your key values are different in these two groups. And in fact, the owners have some different purposes than a family or the business, et cetera. So we spend time, first of all, making that distinction, because a lot of people think that the family and the family business have to be overlapped, have to be exactly the same. No, they don't. But they have to be aligned and mutually supportive. So we have now the conversation around where our business is going is more of a strategic business conversation that we won't, in this program, we acknowledge it, but that's for the owners and for the board and for senior management typically to work out. That's not the intent of this program. Our program is to really get the family, and especially the family ownership group, to think about, what do we want to accomplish? What's our big purpose? What are our important values? Where do we see this going in the next few years? And by the way, we used to talk a lot about 10-year visions. We don't do that anymore because the world is changing so fast. We typically limit it now to 3, maybe 5 at a stretch. So we will spend from the first class, we're going to be asking you as a family and family ownership group, why are you doing this? What is your purpose? Why are you wanting to stay together as a family and do things together? Why are you doing this? And what are the key values that guide you? And generally, the family company will come to its own determination of where it needs to go, what its vision is, indeed, even what its culture needs to be. That needs to be aligned with, it'll be different then, but aligned with what the family and family owners want. And these conversations emerge over the 5.5 days you're with us. I hope that's responsive, Kathy.
Great, thanks. Thanks for that good answer. And moving on, actually, Bogdan and James, I think, asked slightly different versions of a broadly similar question. And you touched on this already, John, the question of, from the perspective of executives and board members and advisors who are not part of the family, and sometimes perhaps they have the experience of being frozen out or treated as lesser participants in the business by the family, but also flipping that around, I guess, do the family need to be concerned about that if they're having that effect on the people that work with them and for them? And what are some of the strategies that you advise to avoid that pitfall if it's a pitfall? And again, is there anything in the course in particular that is helpful to that?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that question. The short answer is a resounding yes. You do need to be concerned. This needs to be a sensitivity and a sensibility of the family. And because, but not only because, you can't do well in business today without attracting key talent into key roles. Can't do it. And a family never has enough key talent to do all of the important things and the other things that around execution that it needs to do. So if you're not building a vibrant enterprise culture, if you're not building a strong culture in your company that attracts good talent, develops good talent, keeps good talent, you're going to start losing out. Growth, talent, unity. And we hammer at that point, and people really kind of, identify with these three things and start saying, do we have the right combination of family and non-family talent? And where does the family need to serve? What is its highest and best use in this enterprise? And what should we delegate to non-family so that it can be done in a highly professional way? How do we do that? And where do people need to be? So we will, and what is the culture of this thing that will attract, absorb, and build great talent, but also build great performance? What does that look like? And so, yes, we will talk about that. And again, our focus is the family ownership group and the broader family and where it needs to be, but we will make these points in the context of their organization that they need to be very sensitive. You need to bring in great non-family executives and delegate to them and empower them. You need great independent board members who are not part of the family or family ownership group, are not part of your management team. You need great talent, and it doesn't stop there. But getting that, building that recognition in the family that this is a game that you play with non-family partners and colleagues. And so I'll stop there, but hopefully that reassures you about our point of view.
That's very helpful. I think you addressed that question very well. I'll ask another question in a second, but perhaps we could just advance the slides as well, John. I think maybe there's something useful for people to look at. And I'll turn to Tarek, who is asking a very interesting question in multiple parts. I will try to summarize for you. He's really asking, first of all, to what extent do you see this program in particular about being to help family businesses and enterprises to be successful now versus how to, as he put it, win against time? And a supplemental question is, what's the role as you see it? Now you've come to MIT, I suppose, you get an additional perspective on. what's the role of the family members in that, and what's the role of technology and science in terms of carrying that future?
Yeah. It's such a, thank you, Tarek. It's a really interesting question about success now versus continuing success. And we all recognize that you can be a high performer now, but not very prepared for even the near future, and really waste an opportunity. So the game is to do it now and to prepare to do it for a long time, and to have the people, the systems, the attitudes, the mindsets in place to allow you to do that. So we're into the game of long-term success, but that also includes today. And I think in a quickly changing environment, if you're not on your toes and performing well today in a variety of ways, including paying attention to what is changing in your technological context, you could be out of the game in a big hurry. So there used to be, even 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago, I've studied back 400 years, there used to be more time to get ready for the future. Now there isn't. And you need to be managing that future game and current game more or less concurrently, and really devoting adequate attention to both, I would say. What role does technology, what role does globalization, what role does the changing socioeconomic and political environment, what change does the environmental, ecological context have on our lives and our businesses and a lot? And we will talk about and give you a way of thinking about how what I call global forces are changing, interact, and influence what we need to do now and what we need to get ready to do downstream. So we're going to look at the context in a very clear-eyed way and talk about what it means for your family and family enterprise. And let me just say this. I do this during one of the classes, ask families to pinpoint where in this river their enterprise is. Is it in calm water or quickly running water or rapids, or are you close to a waterfall? And most families believe they're in the rapids. A few families will say, we suspect we're very close to a waterfall. And the idea is to get this conversation really going and for people to have their eyes wide open about the challenges and opportunities, but challenges that businesses, family wealth, social impact activities, what challenges they face that they better get good at addressing.
Great. Thank you, John. Maybe I can throw in a question of my own at this point, thinking from the perspective of folk who are watching this broadcast or are quite interested in the program. One of the things that you have mentioned is the need to bring together a family group to attend a program like this to get the most value out of it. So what advice do you have to people who may well, I suspect, be one individual watching this particular broadcast, to identifying and recruiting their family team that they should bring to a program like this?
So thank you, Peter. Some families are relatively small, other families are later generation and big. There tends to be a core group of family members that should be at the table in this program: senior and junior generation, owners, non-owners, executives, non-executives, but a combined team that if you had this group at the table, they could talk constructively about their future, and they would all, and then when they go back to the family, they can spread the gospel, thinking about how we need to think about our enterprise, our family, and our future. And to take the lessons of this very interesting week back to their families and start inputting these ideas. So you want to think about, who do I get around the table that can help do that? And sometimes it's 3 or 4 people, and that's what we have, and that's what shows up at the program. Other times it's 5 or 6 or 8 people that if we can get these people together, we've got a good shot of spreading these important lessons when we return. So if you have particular questions about your particular system, email me at davisja@mit.edu. I will respond promptly, I do that, to any of your questions. And if we need to set up a Zoom meeting to get on the line and talk about your particular situation, let's do it. Let's do it. We do this routinely with families that express interest in our programs.
That's great. That's very helpful. Thank you. And that is in that email address is in the chat as well for those who are able to see the chat right now. A couple of final questions, just paraphrasing some that I've seen coming in as well. You mentioned the importance of the mind and hand approach that you've embraced so much in your whole career, and really fits in at MIT. So how should family members who are thinking about putting together a group to come to a program like this, how would you advise them to think about, for want of a better term, the ROI on all of that sort of time and effort and tuition fees and travel and everything else that it takes to participate in something like this?
Yep. It's understandably, admittedly, a big investment of especially time to take a week, including travel, et cetera, to come to MIT, which is it's an interesting, inspirational kind of place to be. Most families say, and I find it that way. But it's a big investment. So what you're trying to do, and we engineer this with our facilitated group conversations, is to not only go like this with your understanding and get better practical perspective on what you need to work on today, what you need to work on for the future, how we're going to get there, and importantly, through dialogue, build consensus. It's a precious experience for families. And families tell us this at the end of the program. This was a precious experience for us to come together, to spend a week together. We never get a chance to spend a week together, and to learn together, and most importantly, to build consensus together. And so the ability to energize your family and to get greater clarity, that there's your payback. And the families, obviously, this is a very highly rated program for those reasons. Families really get a lot of value out of them. And I encourage you to send us a delegation and we'll show you.
Thank you very much, John. And that seems like a good note as we're just about out of time to wind up on. And once again, if people who are listening in, either live or to the recording, do have questions about what John has talked about today, in particular about the upcoming courses, John has shared his email address, davisja@mit.edu. He would welcome hearing from you with any and all questions, in particular, if that can help build a great group of people from your families to join us at these upcoming programs. So thank you so much, John, for spending this time with us. Thank you all for being here with us as well and for asking great questions. Once again, we hope that we will be welcoming several of you in the coming months and maybe years ahead to some scenery like John and I have behind us. There's so much, as John said, that you can get from coming to Kendall Square, to the MIT campus, as well as convening as a group from your family enterprise. Once again, thank you so much, John. Thank you to all the team for putting this together. I hope to see many of you online and on campus in the coming months. And please everyone be safe and keep on innovating.
Yeah, you bet. And Peter, if I can just say too, the campus is open now. Students are there. We're in the classroom. We have very, very tight and good COVID controls, et cetera. But let's keep our fingers crossed that this bloody pandemic is on its way out. And but I look forward to seeing you all on campus. Thank you.